couldn't see that. And in the case of, your son, I just wanted to acknowledge you because, like you may have a response that's not appropriate. That his tendency to lash out and his anger and all of these issues, this would not be the appropriate response. Maybe he should be going to meditation.
No.
Maybe he should be doing that as well.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that.
No.
As part of his development, we're going to take him to a safe place where he can express that. And he'll be with men,
Yeah, and I don't, normally, and I think probably women can relate to normally blaming themselves about what their children haven't had or, but I think it's, the danger is, I suppose, in the context in which we've framed this discussion, that it's like, oh, well, men wouldn't kill women if they had some physical outlet. And I think that's, I'd like you to talk to that, because I know that's not what you think, but that's where, where we're in danger of going.
I think it's more complicated than that.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we live in a world where, we're talking about, we've had so many conversations about equal rights, equal pay for women, all these issues that are constantly in the media, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a counter element that comes in for men about, well, who am I if I'm not the major breadwinner, if I'm not this, if I'm not that, who am I if I'm actually not the smartest in the heterosexual relationship, in that particular circumstance. What's my identity now? Where do I fit? What happens if I can't make the grade?
Yeah.
And I think men, you and I have talked many times about my own experiences of work and at times the drudgery of that and the difficulty of that and constantly feeling as though you're kind of just pushing shit uphill, really, and how that brings on a lot of anger and a lot of emotion. There's not a lot of validation in that. And most men now don't do physical work. They do this kind of work. And I'm just saying that we have a kind of like a big sociological change going on. Where roles are changing.
Can you talk a bit more about the sort of the sense of guilt and shame that men might feel?
Well, when my two kids were growing up, my first marriage ended when my kids were 6 and 4, really young, and that was back in the early 1990s, and it was a time when the situation was obvious, was like the settings were very clear. That the man would leave the home, which I did. The man would pay maintenance to the ex-wife, estranged wife. The wife would raise the children, and the man would have access to the children one weekend every second week, every fortnight, and that was how it went, so I didn't overly challenge that. I felt incredibly grieved. I was, the breakup of the marriage was terrible, but the loss of my children and the loss of being able to cuddle with them every night and feed them in the morning was huge. But that's the way that was then, Now things have changed now. And I think I've told you that there were times when I'd approached my company to get a bit more access to my kids and be able to just free that up a bit. And I had a lot of pushback on that because, that was seen to be that I wasn't a serious up-and-coming professional person if I was wanting to have more family time, right? So, these were the things that I kind of went through when I was a young dad, And I know it's changed, but bloody hard. Does that answer your question?
Not really. I'm sort of... Because, I don't know, it raises issues for me about the fact that, your wife at the time was then doing a lot of the childcare